world's about to change. It has changed. We just don't know it yet. I don't think they believed me, but they went and checked, and obviously there were no kids or strippers in there. Right? Part of my divorce was because of my distraction with artificial intelligence and machine learning. Equip it with, cameras and, the laptop and the microphones so that the kid, starting off with a leprechaun. Leprechaun stands for legally explainable Python recursion using chained adversarial hallucinations. This is it's known as an inference method or a prompting method. Prior to going to law school, I studied machine translation at BYU. That was one of my majors, and keeping me in prison. Especially at a time like now, probably not the most productive thing for society. Whole mad scientist phenomena it's a real thing, and I've come to understand.
Mad scientist or just plain mad? Well, I'll help you come to that conclusion at the end of the hearing with all of the details. But for now, let's jump in.
So in case 201-906-920, you convicted of a third-degree felony stalking. This occurred around May 20th, or in May 2020, where officers received reports of concerning behavior, stated that, I'm assuming this is your ex-wife, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Ex-wife stated her ex-husband, Aaron Tarrant, had been exhibiting strange behaviors from approximately May 18th through May 29th, 2020. On May 18th, 2020, she stated that you had sent her multiple angry emails and videos which talked about a leprechaun chase, and everybody needed to be ready for it. On May 20th, stated that she had requested you to take a drug test per their divorce agreement. Mr. Tarrant sent her an email stating she owed him money for the last test, and he would require her to pay him his billable rate of $500 an hour for testing. Mr. Tarrant stated as soon as she transferred the money, he will go. Mr. Tarrant later emailed her stating that he sat waiting for her to pay him and that she now owed him an additional $1,000, stating, "Do you get it?" On May 26, 2020, she stated that you had sent a mass email to her and her family talking about the Tarrant leprechaun. On May 27, 2020, Mr. Tarrant sent her an email stating he had a short fuse, and if she did not comply with his wants, he will send out instructions on how he would go from here. Later that day, Mr. Tarrant left voicemails for the guardian ad litem in their divorce case. Mr. Tarrant let the guardian know he was sending someone to Miss Tarrant's house to watch her. The guardian ad litem stated she had been working with them since October 2019. The guardian stated she saw Mr. Tarrant's behavior change on March 20th, 2020, or in March 2020. And in May 2020, Mr. Tarrant began sending out threatening emails. The guardian stated on or about May 28th, 2020, you had left the guardian 5 voicemails stating he was going to have a black car parked in front of Ms. Tarrant's house, and it would be like a private investigator and record her. The message then stated if anyone moved the car, there would be hell to pay. The guardian stated Mr. Tarrant sent her a text on May 29th, 2020, stating he had dropped his vehicle in front of Ms. Tarrant's house, and it could be used by the children to communicate with him. Mr. Tarrant stated he was at the airport. On May 28th, 2020, Mr. Tarrant sent a text message to the children's parent time supervisor stating he was sending someone to Ms. Tarrant's house to watch her and to not call police. Mr. Tarrant then left a voicemail for the children's parent time supervisor stating someone was on the way to Miss Tarrant's house right then. Miss Tarrant called 911 to report this. Mr. Tarrant posted a video of a black vehicle stating the headlights will be staring right at you. Several hours later, Mr. Tarrant posted a video of himself in the garage. The video showed a different vehicle hooked to cords, and Mr. Tarrant honked the horn and stated that's what's going to happen. Mr. Tarrant posted another video of himself in the second vehicle showing the open hood and himself sleeping in the garage. On May 29th, 2020, Mr. Taryn posted a photo of himself and his minor child talking about Guantanamo and Satoshi. Mr. Taryn sent an email to several people, including Ms. Taryn, which stated, "The leprechaun is now in a position to mate." On May 29th, 2020, Ms. Taryn's neighbor stated Mr. Taryn called him and stated he would be leaving a vehicle near Ms. Taryn's house and hung up. A short time later, Mr. Taryn knocked on the neighbor's door and asked him to come outside. The neighbor went outside and Mr. Taryn showed him a black SUV with several cameras and microphones duct taped to the windshield to record audio. Mr. Taryn gave the neighbor a key to the vehicle and told him to keep it. Mr. Taryn then told the neighbor he was going to an undisclosed location and left in a white vehicle driven by an unknown male. The neighbor stated Mr. Taryn texted him and said, "If you need to move, just call my office and leave a message for Rick. All you need to say is the leprechaun needs to be moved. I'll be out of the country for work and I'll be available." Officers responded to Miss Taryn's house and observed the vehicle outside her residence. The vehicle had multiple microphones, cameras, and computers inside. There was also writing and several unknown items taped to the inside of the vehicle. The bomb squad was dispatched to make sure there were no explosives in or on the vehicle. Mr. Taryn was intercepted by Salt Lake City police at the Salt Lake City airport. Mr. Taryn told officers he may have a bomb in his bag. During transport to the Salt Lake County Jail, Mr. Taryn stated he broke into a law office in Salt Lake County to get cameras. Mr. Taryn stated officers should look at his vehicle parked at his house, and he gave the key to Mr. Taryn's next door neighbor. Mr. Taryn told officers he had drugs in the house, strippers tied up in his closet, and children he had sexually assaulted in his basement. Mr. Taryn made several disturbing videos, which he posted to social media. One showing stacks of money and his 2 passports, another showing a black Acura, and Mr. Taryn stated he was going to Iron Man the car and turn it into private investigator drone. He was booked into Salt Lake County Jail. Is that accurate, sir?
That's accurate.
Anything you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, I think it deserves some explanations. Starting off with the leprechaun. Leprechaun stands for legally explainable Python recursion using chained adversarial hallucinations. This is it's known as an inference method or a prompting method. Prior to going to law school, I studied machine translation at BYU. That was one of my majors, and I have kept up with this. This is essentially artificial intelligence, AI, language models. The leprechaun is an inference method about prompting protocol that I've been working on for years. That's designed to translate, the law essentially into a language that that these language models can understand and reason. It's also enables unique software capabilities so that you can do things like what I did with the vehicles to modify their software so that they can be started remotely, so that their radio systems, GPS systems can be modified and used for other purposes. As the record states, I was in the middle of a pretty nasty divorce. I now understand that I was in a manic episode where I would stay up really late, researching and coding and tinkering with the vehicles and the laptops and the computer technology as it was just beginning to emerge then back in 2020. It didn't become mainstream until 2022 with the advent of ChatGPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. A transformer, again, is a translation algorithm that these algorithms I've been studying since my undergraduate. So that's what a leprechaun is. I knew that people were not going to understand what I was talking about. Again, this was 2020. Machine learning and AI was still kind of a weird thing that people didn't understand. Today, it's commonplace, of course, but back then it wasn't. it was really frustrating. My part of my divorce was because of my distraction with artificial intelligence and machine learning back then. Again, nobody understood it back then. And this was a tension point that I had with my wife, my ex-wife. And so sending these emails, I knew that they were not going to be understood for what they were, but that's what the leprechaun was. And the references in the vehicles to Iron Manning them means modifying them, essentially like the movie Iron Man. And when the guardian ad litem um, revoked my visitation, it just increased the tension and the lack of sleep, really, which is one of the primary triggers for my manic episodes.
Right.
And I decided to modify the vehicle, equip it with cameras and the laptop and the microphones, so that the kids could essentially see me and talk to me right in that way, and the vehicle could start up, and they could do that whenever they wanted to. Obviously, in retrospect, that was the poor judgment. My neighbor, who is a police officer in West Valley, good friend, I called him before and told him, hey, I'm going to come drop this off, and that's what I did. I dropped it off with a police officer that is my neighbor, and I gave him the keys. Those are the facts. I just want to give a little bit of background on the leprechaun and my mindset at the time. And looking back, I was manic. I hadn't slept very well, and I was under a tremendous amount of stress. And so,
What about the piece where you told officers you had drugs in the house, strippers tied up, closet, children who had been sexually assaulted in the basement? Tell me about that.
again, I had just been revoked my visitation rights to my kids, and I felt very resentful, and I was mad at everybody. And obviously, I said that in jest, um, so that because I was angry and manic. I don't think they believed me, but they went and checked, and obviously there were no kids or strippers in there, right? And these were all of the I felt like these were the allegations that were coming at me at the time, that I wasn't a good dad, that I was, abusive to my kids, that my ex-wife was angry because I had began, dating other women. And so these were things that were coming out as negative emotions at the time. But yeah, needless to say that I never had strippers or kids tied up in my basement.
In case 201907031, you were convicted of a third-degree felony aggravated assault. In this case, it was on June 13th, 2020. Officers were dispatched to a delayed assault, to a delayed reported assault. The victim stated her friend, Erin Taryn, had called her in distress and needed someone to talk to. Mr. Taryn asked if she could come to his home. She stated that she got to Mr. Taryn's home. He began showing money and his home off to her. They began drinking and playing pool. She stated she noticed Mr. Taryn talking under his breath and began calling her by the name of Amber. Officers noted this is Mr. Taryn's ex-wife's name, and at the time they were going through a custody battle. Ms. Taryn stated the victim stated that Mr. Taryn became aggressive and began to call her vulgar names. This upset the victim, at which time she began to cry and tried to leave the home. She stated that Mr. Taryn began to grab her chest and vagina without her consent. She stated that Mr. Taryn started to grab her hair violently to the point it was extremely painful to her. She stated that she begged Mr. Taryn to stop. She stated Mr. Taryn grabbed her arm and placed his arm across her chest, which put pressure against her, which made it difficult for her to breathe. She stated that you began grabbing at her clothes, groping her, and continuing to do this multiple times. She stated that she was able to get away and grab her phone and record Mr. Taryn. She stated that she was able to get away from him after the assault, and Mr. Taryn followed her, pushed her down the stairs, and she struck her head. She stated that Mr. Taryn became extremely apologetic, at which time she called for a ride to leave. Upon her attempting to leave, Mr. Taryn again pinned her down, pulled her hair, and would not allow her to go. She stated she was finally able to get away from you and leave the home. Um, she was evaluated at the hospital, and it was discovered that she had a chest contusion. Or from the pressure which was placed on her chest by you. She also had minor head injury. On the same day, officers responded to Mr. Tarrant's residence on a suspicious person call. Officers located Mr. Tarrant wearing a yellow coat, acting like an ape. A friend took Mr. Tarrant into his residence and left. Later the same day, officers again responded to Mr. Tarrant's residence due to the neighbor calling and stating that he was banging on their vehicle window with them inside. Dispatch also received a call from Mr. Tarrant stating he was intoxicated and wanted police to respond. Officers took Mr. Tarrant into custody and he was transported to the Salt Lake County Jail. While at the jail, Mr. Tarrant was uncooperative and was placed in his taxi chair and placed in a padded cell for the safety of himself and jail staff. Is that accurate, sir?
That is accurate.
Anything you wanna add?
It is, well, certain aspects are accurate. Not taking notes, on the exact details, but I'm familiar with the allegations. I did plead guilty to those. Allie, or Al, as I call her, she was, a friend for several years. It was a dysfunctional, toxic relationship. I actually met her in rehab. Um, and I knew the relationship was, we were both bipolar, and I knew from the get-go that it wasn't smart. It wasn't a good relationship, but I continued to engage in it. If you want to call it like a sugar daddy relationship, that's probably accurate. She did come to the house. I invited her over that day. She was intoxicated. I was intoxicated. She showed up with half a bottle of liquor, and we started playing pool. It was a type of strip pool that we like to play. Again, we continued to drink, and we started arguing about money. And at the time, again, I was in the process of a divorce, and money was an issue, and I was very resentful against my ex-wife, and I think I took it out on Al. And I said some pretty horrible things to her. And we got in an argument. I actually was the first one that told her to, get the F out. And she said, well, you call me an Uber. And I told her, no, you fuck you. You called the Uber, and we got an argument there. She went up the stairs and she actually fell. She was really intoxicated. She had her dog as well. So I actually helped her up the stairs. Once we got up the stairs, I went and got her dog because the dog was there. And then I saw that she grabbed my keys and was, going to run out. So I did. I grabbed her hair. We fell to the ground. I was angry. She was trying to hide the keys. And I don't deny, although I don't recall, I don't deny that I did grab her probably everywhere. Although, it was like, it was out of anger primarily. That's why I pled to, the sexual battery or reckless, and yeah, I waited until the Uber showed up, and then I saw that she left with her dog. Then I tried to call her to make sure that she got home. She didn't answer, and apparently, 2 days later, well, I guess like a day later, she went and got a civil attorney, and then she filed a protective order and then went to the cops. And she's currently suing me civilly, for emotional and physical damages still. So I'm still dealing with that. I think we have a final pretrial in November.
Okay.
So that's that case. And again, I admit what I did. It was, I'm sure, emotionally difficult for her, and physically as well. I don't want to put any blame on her. She's half my age. I knew that relationship was toxic, and it was something that was going to end badly, and it did. And I've paid tremendously for that.
Sir, if there's restitution owing in any of these cases, are you willing to pay that?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
I do show currently in your first case, the $2,519.38 that was listed and a report. I didn't see anything else as of yet.
Right. Yeah, we've tried to get a restitution amount from, um, but again, she's suing civilly, so she doesn't want to state restitution in the criminal case. She wants to deal with it in the civil case. So that's what I suspect that's what's going on there, because we have attempted several restitution hearings, and she hasn't cooperated with the prosecution, or she hasn't produced that. But yes, of course, both restitutions, whatever they may come out to be, I'm willing to pay those.
Or do you have any other mental health diagnoses?
I see that APMP is recommending that when I'm released, that I get a mental health evaluation, which I've gotten 3 already, substance abuse, which I have here, and I had another one
You
scheduled.
want to leave those and have the officer scan them. They can scan them so they can submit those into my email, and I can
Okay.
get those uploaded for the board to review when they're
Okay,
making a decision in your case, and then you can have the originals back
okay.
before
That'll
you
be
go
great.
back to your cell.
Okay, yeah. So that's my primary concern at this point is, evaluations and programming in here. Again, there's not a whole lot of, it's going to be highly inhibited without my proper medication.
Tell me a little bit about your substance use history.
Um, Substance abuse, honestly, I was a good little Mormon boy until I was about 30, 35. And I got drunk once in high school. I experimented with it, but it's a little bit in college, but it wasn't an issue until I actually left the LDS church, and that triggered my divorce, and that's what triggered really my experimentation with drugs and alcohol. I wasn't. I didn't have any experience with it, and I used it at a really bad time in my life where it became a crutch to deal with what I was going through. And so I experimented with pretty much everything except for opioids. Opioids, I tried it once in high school and just puked my guts out, and so I've just never, yeah, opioids have never been an issue for me.
You consider your drug of choice.
Alcohol for sure. That's the most difficult drug.
Consider yourself an addict in any way?
Well, I mean, it depends on your therapeutic framework. Some people say once an addict, always an addict, and if that's true, then I guess I'm an addict.
What is
Um,
yours?
I view it as a spectrum. I do. I view it as, for me primarily, if as long as I'm getting sleep, um, substances usually aren't an issue. I usually use alcohol, looking back to put me to sleep. um, and it's not good. Sometimes you don't get to sleep, and it induces the mania, which again can be really scary for people around me when I'm in that state of mind. So yeah, that's the drug of choice. I don't consider myself. I mean, the last time I used it was January of 2023, right? And then before that, it was several, months before. And so I mean, in the last 4 years, I've since the conviction, I've consumed very little alcohol.
What about other substances?
Other substances, I mean, I do have a prescription for cannabis here in the state of Utah because I have ulcerative colitis. Um, so I do use that. Even though I do have a prescription, I don't like the way that it makes me lethargic at times, and impairs short-term memory. So I'm careful with that, but I don't consider myself addicted to it.
Okay.
But yeah, alcohol is that's a tough one. Yeah, and I think I'm probably always going to have to watch out for that.
How's your physical health?
Okay, I guess. I mean, I need to, start running and do something. I put on a lot of unnecessary weight while in custody, because I'm not, I do work still from here. My office sends me, documents and cases, and I'm still managing a team of AI engineers right now that we're developing legal legal AI, AI for deportation defense and criminal defense and various different immigration applications. So I'm still actively working and obviously have um, that team ready to go once I get out. But again, the big challenge for me in here has been the lethargic and the brain fog that's caused without the Adderall being in the medication regime.
Okay. And then as far as programming goes while you're in here, have you been able to get into anything, apply for anything, do anything?
No, at this point, I mean, it's the programs are really hard to get into if you don't have a date, right? Um, and then, evaluations, I've had three and I had a fourth one scheduled on the outs. We were just waiting for my medication to, um, to stabilize. And in fact, I have the emails here that I'll provide that prove that I did have an appointment for a fourth assessment after my medications stabilized. But yeah, without that medication stability in here, I mean, programming and evaluations are going to be ineffective. That's the primary challenge that I'm facing.
Okay. I do show you have a pending write-up. I'm not gonna ask you about that because it is pending, for the substance abuse, that you received on May 26th. Just know that that is in there and
Yeah.
going.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
And then if you were to parole, sir, what would that look like for you? You said you still have work, you're still working. Where would you live? Like,
Yeah. So I have a house in Harriman where I've lived for almost 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
rent?
Yes, yes, I own it. I would be living with coworkers. Um, those coworkers would involve, you know, AI engineers, paralegals, attorneys that come in, fly in. Again, I've got two businesses. I'm still very much in part of managing and running the back end of the law firm, and there's a separate company that's managed that handles the legal technology and AI development. So yeah, there's there's a lot of work to do right now. A ton of
As far as treatment, do you have that set up?
Yes, I mean, I have, and I'll leave the letters here. Again, I've been doing substantial treatment for 4 years. The letters here give an overview, inpatient, outpatient, that I've completed several times, and I'm working with Patrick Adams, who is the LCSW that the prosecution recommended, back in 2020. So he continues to be my therapist that I see, and yeah, that's I would get out and do another evaluation like APMP is recommending with ARS. This would be the fourth one, which I think is good because they've got a good record of what's happened and they can kind of direct my therapist Patrick Adams and then my psychiatrist who manages the meds as well. So yes, I have I've got good insurance, luckily. And I've got an excellent team of a mental health team that helps me. I also have, professional coaches. I think one of my um, attorney coaches who we have hired for personal development, she sent a letter as well. So I'm very fortunate in that I do have a very strong support structure in terms of my employment. Got about 15, 20 employees. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are riding on me, making sure that I get out and be successful and productive.
What do you feel like has changed for you so that you don't end up coming back here?
Um, this last violation, if you see what it was, gosh, and I'll leave the evidence here too. What I suspect is that I was wearing a sweatpant that had a tight cuff at the bottom, and it just snuck down without me knowing. And as soon as the AMP person texts me, I'll show you the text. I went and took a test within an hour, as fast as I could, because I knew that this was gonna, be the thing. It was negative. Then, I called my AP&P agent immediately and said, "Hey, can I come in so I can test? Because I know this judge, she's at her wit's end with me. She's gonna issue a warrant." So I went in. They said, "No, we'll come in tomorrow." I did. They tested me again. What do I do? Um, it is what it is. It's still my fault because I should have been, more aware of what was going on. Although that day I was working, coding with another coworker, and I just didn't notice it. So it is what it is, though. I don't want to make any excuses because it is my fault. So what has changed? Coming to prison is an interesting experience. I'm not going to say it's worse than county. It's actually more structured, right? But it's been challenging here. Um, there is a corrosive aspect to it, though. You have to understand. There are drugs and alcohol everywhere. There are gangs everywhere. There's criminality everywhere. I understand now why my clients were unable to comply with probation. I get it now. Back then, I would just look and say, why can't you do these basic things? What's your problem? But here I am, 4 years into probation, struggling because the system, and I'm not blaming any individual person. It is an industrial complex that does have a gravitational pull, and being in prison long term, I don't want to get comfortable here. I don't. It is something that I can feel is a corrosive force to maintaining a law-abiding attitude, if I can say it that way. It is a jungle here, and you learn to adapt. And those adaptations, I understand now why. Um, yeah, it's not a good place to be, despite the efforts that the board and I'm sure everyone makes to be a corrective facility. It is a different game here as opposed to jail. So being here uh, long term, yeah, it's not good for. I don't see it being very good for me. It's pretty challenging to stay on the correct path here, if I'm honest.
Okay. Sir, we've got a couple more minutes. Is there anything you want the board to know or feel like they need to know at this point?
Um, I would just, want to point out that I've served 2 years already. Um, it's been, I paid a tremendous price. I haven't seen my kids for 4 years. It's been very difficult. I don't want to use that as blame that because that I also had a part in that. But it's a challenge as a father to deal with that for 4 years. I'm currently still in a nasty custody battle and fighting over money and everything with my ex-wife and with my ex-girlfriend or Allie, whatever you want to call her. I'm currently being sued there as well. So in terms of paying for, what I've done, I think I paid a hefty price for essentially, emails and yeah, the pulling Allie's hair and doing all of that. Yeah, I paid a huge price. Um, and I also have come to understand what bipolar is. I didn't realize that, the ADHD as a kid, as an adult, kind of can transition into bipolar. Um, and I understand that much better now. I understand now looking back. I was manic when I studied for the bar. I was manic when I studied for the LSAT. I was manic during finals because you don't sleep, and a bipolar person, when you don't sleep, you actually get a shot of brain chemicals that makes you feel like you're fine. It makes you feel great. The whole mad scientist phenomena it's a real thing. And I've come to understand that pretty well over the last 4 years. So I paid a tremendous price. Lastly, I just want the board to know that I have a tremendous amount to contribute to law still. I don't intend on, keeping my license or practicing traditional law, but the world's about to change. It has changed. We just don't know it yet. The judicial system is about to change tremendously. I have it just so happens that I've been studying this technology for almost 15 years, and it's about to usher in a new era in terms of justice. And I have a tremendous amount to contribute there, to the community, and a unique perspective on it as well because of my contact with the system. Unlike other attorneys or judges or anybody else, I have seen the other side, and I understand um, much more than I think most do. So keeping me in prison, especially at a time like now, probably not the most productive thing for society. I don't pose a risk to anybody, and I, I accept the responsibility for what I've done, and I'll have to defer to the board's decision on what they do.
Okay. What I plan on doing is taking the information we discussed today, compiling that into a report and submitting that to the board. The board is the one who makes the final decision in your case. They're made up of 5 members. They have to come to a majority decision in your case. Usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks for them to get that decision out to you. You currently have a 20-month guideline, which puts you at April 5th, 2024, which we have clearly passed. That guideline is what it is. It's just a guideline, meaning that they can continue to go past that if they want to see you complete something prior to the opportunity to parole. You were given 545 days credit for time served. You do have a 10-year top expiration date on your sentence, which puts you at August 4th, 2032. That is the length of time the board could have jurisdiction over your case, given there are no other further offenses. Do you have any other questions for me, sir?
I don't.
With that, we'll go ahead and conclude this hearing. Thank you. Good luck to you and have a good day.
Right.
Well, and we asked at the beginning, is he mad scientist or just mad? Who is this man, Aaron, anyways? Well, let's find out.
His name is Aaron Taryn. He is an immigration attorney here in the state of Utah, and he does spend a lot of his time here in the federal courthouse trying to help people get asylum here legally in the United States. He says that is becoming harder and more dangerous.
We entered through a port of entry that the family was headed into.
Sitting in Utah on Thursday, Aaron Taryn reflects on getting into a small town in Chihuahua, Mexico, just hours after the ambush that killed 9 people.
It was a pretty scary situation as we crossed into Janos because, we just found out that this had occurred.
To get to his family in Chihuahua, Aaron had to drive 3 hours on dark dirt roads.
Every car that passes, every car you see on the side of the road, you have to wonder, what they're doing there and what potential risk it might pose.
He went there for his grandfather's funeral, all the while wondering if it was the right decision given the tense situation in the area.
There was a lot of looking behind your shoulder and a lot of tense moments where every car that passed, you'd wonder, who is that and why they're here. So
Aaron says since the capture of Sinaloa cartel head El Chapo Guzman, several cartels have been engaged in turf wars.
All of the cartel resources are sort of up for grabs, and war breaks out between the cartel members.
Aaron calls Chihuahua a much different place now than the quiet town he used to visit as a kid.
You need to appreciate and understand the difficult circumstances that exist on the northern border.
And Aaron did return here to the United States late last night, and he recommends anyone that might be traveling to the area, whether it be for a vacation or to visit family or friends, he says he recommends doing so with someone who knows the area to try to better get around a little bit more safely. Guys, back to you.
And it was just 7 months from the time of this news series that he then gets locked up for these series of crimes. And I think it just goes to show how mental health does not discriminate and how quickly it can find its way into our minds. That's just my opinion. I'm no expert. I'm only speculating on a situation like this. Now, the parole board said that they would see him in 6 months from the time of this initial hearing. They want him to have evaluation. So they basically said no, but they're giving him another parole opportunity, and we'll cover that hearing when we have it. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to go through this report from his mugshot, and it covers a bunch of what the parole interviewer went through, but a no bail arrest warrant has been issued for a prominent immigration attorney in Utah whose increasingly erratic behavior, according to police and prosecutors, culminated with him making terroristic threats against his wife, I think it was the ex-wife, in addition to making several bizarre statements. Aaron, 40, of Harriman, was arrested 3 times over 2 weeks in late May through June. On Thursday, he was charged in 3rd District Court with making terroristic threats a 2nd-degree felony and stalking a 3rd-degree felony. He holds both U.S. and Mexican citizenship, has been a member of the Utah State Bar since 2008. He has served the executive chairman of the Utah chapter of the American Lawyers Association, is a member of the Utah Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and serves on the legal panel for the American Civil Liberties Union in Utah. He wasn't just an attorney. He wasn't just an immigration attorney. He was an ambitious, successful, young superstar, it seems, by all accounts. And then it snapped. And I feel compassion for him. According to the charging, and I get, yes, the things he's done are terrible, and I feel compassion for his victims. I don't know what the answer is, but it's this is a very unique situation that we don't see often, I don't think. Taryn, who holds both U.S. and Mexican citizenship, has been okay. According to the charging documents, his ex-wife reported to police that he was engaging in concerning behavior from May 18th to May 29th, including sending her multiple angry emails and videos that talked about a leprechaun chase and that everybody needs to be ready for it. On May 26th, Taryn sent an email to his ex-wife and her family talking about the Taryn leprechaun, the charges state. Taryn and his wife divorced in 2017 after 14 years of marriage. The Guardian and Taryn and divorce told people that she noticed the change in his behavior starting in March. On May 28th, he left her 5 voicemails stating he would have a car parked in front of his ex-wife's house and it would be like a private investigator recording her, according to charges. On May 29th, he allegedly parked his GMC Yukon Denali outside his ex-wife's home. The vehicle had multiple microphones, cameras, and computers inside. There was also wiring and several unknown items taped to the inside of the vehicle. The bomb squad was dispatched to make sure there was no explosives in or on the vehicle. After dropping off the vehicle, police received information that he was headed to Salt Lake City International Airport, possibly to flee the country. Police reporting finding him at the airport attempting to buy a plane ticket. During his arrest for investigation and stalking and disorderly conduct, he told officers he had a bomb in his luggage and at his house, and he had narcotics and strippers tied up in the closet and children that he had assaulted in the basement. That's what they were referencing to. And as you can see, that in the context, in his mind, he had done nothing wrong, and they're accusing him of these things. So he's like, this side, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not something a normal, sane person or an attorney would say. I'm just speculating in a situation like this. I don't know. Okay. I have to make that statement again. Police also went to Harriman's house and found several suspicious items in plain view. Several notes enticing law enforcement officers were taped to his windows. The inside of his home was a mess, and it appeared several electronic items were placed for surveillance throughout the home. According to search warrant affidavit, officers noted they were worried. I mean, it just seems like a classic scenario when someone goes on a total episode. It's manic written all over it. Again, I'm no expert. I don't have degrees in this. I'm just basing this off of TV I watch. Taryn had a left trap for police inside the house. Officers noted they were worried that he left a trap inside the house. After entering the home, no traps, no narcotics, no children or strippers are being held in the basement, the warrant states. Imagine having to write that. After he was able to bail out of jail, the next day, prosecutors allege in charging documents that Taryn posted several disturbing videos to social media, including one that shows a stack of money and his 2 passports. He was saying that he was going to Iron Man the vehicle and turn it into a private investigator drone. On Wednesday, he was arrested on investigations of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and forcible sexual abuse for an incident that occurred June 13th. And this is what the interviewer spoke about as well. This was a different woman. And we have seen this interviewer go mama bear on a roach once before, and I really appreciated that. I'll put the link in the description if I can remember to do that. On that, and I felt that she was quite emotional when she was reading this. On that day, a neighbor went to Taryn's house because he had been drinking alcohol, and he told her that he needed a friend to talk about current custody issues involving his ex-wife. According to police affidavit, but after the woman arrived, Taryn allegedly became aggressive with her and began calling her by his ex-wife's name. Taryn pulled the woman's hair extremely hard, attempted to pull her clothes off, and put his arms across her chest with heavy pressure, according to the affidavit. The woman was able to record some of the alleged assault with her phone. Please let me go. Please let me go. Please let me go. You called me an expletive and so many mean things. The woman is heard saying, according to the affidavit, you're hurting me. You're hurting me. Please let me go. Let me go. After his arrest, Taryn was able to post bail. The day after the alleged kidnapping on June 14th, he was arrested again after police say he was dressed in a yellow raincoat, acting like an ape, banging on door of nearby homes. He was located in the middle of the street holding a large real estate sign and banged his head on the window of the police patrol car after he was arrested for investigation of intoxication and disorderly conduct to charges state. In February, he was placed on probation in Coconino County, Arizona, for 2 counts of disorderly conduct and child endangerment. Prosecutors say, charging documents, that he was unstable and volatile behavior over the past month and half suggest an escalation of his violent behavior. They'll consider him a significant flight risk due to his dual citizenship, money, multiple passports, and multiple cell phones. He works as immigration defense lawyer. His assistant told the Deseret News on Friday that he was not in the office but was expected to be in later, but she refused to answer any questions. And then finally, and again, thank you, Richard, we'll look at here is documentation of his attorney, the discipline that he faced. And thank you, Richard, for not missing anything. So he originally was disciplined on December 20th by the Honorable Andrew H. Stone, entered an order of discipline admonishment against an attorney for violating Rules 8.1 in summary. Underlining claims concerning the attorney were dismissed by the court. However, it was determined that the attorney should receive admonishment for failing for timely response. So it's interesting, but in the first offense in 2022, they were dismissed, but they got him for not doing a timely response. And then they gave him a suspension. So first it was just an admonishment. Then now it's the serious thing, which is a suspension, but it's not an expellment. And I'm not an attorney. I don't know, every state might even be different, but this is pretty serious, but he hasn't been disbarred. It's an interim suspension. On January 26, 2023, the Honorable Keith Kelly III entered an order of interim suspension of the rules of lawyer discipline, disability sanctions, and pending resolution of the disciplinary matter against him. In summary, Mr. Taryn was placed on an interim suspension based on convictions for the following criminal offenses. So to wrap it up, we like to cover on this channel the good, the bad, and the ugly, and to have different, to see everything that's going on here. And I think what we saw is a clear case of someone who is not just an attorney. The question was, is he mad or mad scientist? He seems, from what we have seen in the few minutes that I unpacked it, that Richard provided research, that not only was he an attorney, but he was a successful attorney. He was a ambitious, young, motivated, highly successful attorney with a vision and was trying to do good in his field of expertise. And then at still a very young age, it seems that mental illness that doesn't discriminate, that it took over. And you might ask questions of, well, what do you do in a situation like this? Is he sent to prison? Is he sent to an institution? How do you handle someone like this? And you have to keep the victims in mind and the fear that that they'll be living in if he gets out. And I don't have the answers, but what I do like to do is bring this to everyone to see it so we can be aware. And please keep in mind that I am only speculating on a situation like this. I am not diagnosing anyone. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just a Mandoo. Thank you, Richard, for the information. And with that, I'll let you go.